For the past few months, I have been making a lot of sourdough bread, and one of the most integral parts of that is having a healthy sourdough starter. Now, most people will tell you that you have to be very certain with your measurements, and that does work for some people. But me, I like feeding my sourdough in the morning when I'm making my first cup of coffee, and at that point, I don't feel like using measuring cups or a scale or anything like that, so I kind of just eyeball it. Today, I'm showing you guys how you can keep a healthy starter without measuring it precisely. So this is my starter, Parm. I usually feed him about once or twice a day. Usually just once, twice if I'm baking with him. I don't know what the gender of my starter is. I feel like I could get in trouble for even deciding. So yeah, my gender neutral starter, Parm, likes to be fed twice on baking days and only once on normal days. So how I do that is I have this little wire that is wrapped around my jar. A lot of people use rubber bands instead. Whatever you want to use is fine, but I put it about halfway up my jar. This is the guide for everything I'm going to do with this starter. So my first step is to discard. I discard a little over half of my starter every time. So I have that right in the middle. Discarding. And as you can see here, the discard is still pretty thick because I just fed my starter last night. Now I am about halfway, about a quarter of the way up the jar, I should say. But this starter is still pretty thick. There's not much of the watery residue on it. With that watery residue, you can actually stir that into your starter if you want your breads to be a little bit more sour. You don't have to always discard it, but I prefer to. I like my breads to be a little bit more mild. But anyway, right now we have a nice, thick, viscous starter in this bowl right now. This is perfect for just pouring into a cast iron skillet. I learned that off of a fellow baker online. I will tag him down below. But you can use this for a lot of different recipes. You can make a discard pizza dough. You can use it as a batter for cauliflower and make buffalo cauliflower. There's a lot you can do with your discard. So if you want, you can save this, put it to the side, and use it in recipes later. Or you can just pour it in the sink, wash it down, or in the garbage. I like being wasteful with it sometimes, but some mornings I just say fuck it and just throw it in the garbage. But yeah, now that we are discarded, it is time to feed. Now, I feed my starter every day, so it can get a little expensive if you're using all specialty flours, even though they are a lot better for the starter. So, what I do, I got about an inch of flour that I have to fill up here. I have all-purpose here, unbleached of course. I get sketched out with any of the bleaching process. I don't think it's necessary. Some people would argue with me there, and that's fine, but I'd rather just not take any chances. So, I do about 2 scoops. Basically what I'm trying to do here is just get right back up to that line. And I think I am right now, let's see. Okay, so I'm about halfway up the jar. It's good to go. And now, this isn't wholly necessary, but on days that I am going to bake with my starter, I add a scoop of rye flour. Starters love to have flours that have a little bit more of the fiber from the wheat plant. So whole wheat flours, rye flours, things like that, your starter will react a lot better to. So sometimes on bake days, I'll spoil old Parm and add a spoon or 2 of rye. Even when I'm cooking, I don't really measure stuff. I'm more of a little bit of this, a little bit of that person. That's how my grandma cooked, that's how my mom cooked, and I like the romanticism that comes with that. I've never liked measuring things or doing exact recipes, even though I probably should. Now we just have some water, regular old water. You can use well, distilled, whatever you'd like. I just pour a little bit of that in, just because I know I'll need, that's like the minimal amount I would need, right? I stir it, and this is still like dough. It feels like I'm stirring a dough right now. It doesn't feel like I'm stirring a batter or a liquid. So I know I need a little bit more water. Maybe a little too much there, but we should be good. Now I just make sure you stir it in, get it on the bottom. because these things can get pretty inconsistent texturally, so. All right, well, I mean, it's a little thick right now, but it's looking pretty good to me. I'm gonna add just a little bit more water, make it a little less viscous. But what I'm looking for here is a texture. I basically want this starter to be a little bit more viscous than pancake batter. That's what it's gonna be like, that's what I look for. And that way, I don't have to measure anything. I just have to look for a certain consistency and hope that I can get that consistency as close as possible to this middle point in my jar. And it's looking pretty good. So, that is it. That is how I feed my starter. I take the top lid of the jar, put it on here. Don't seal it or anything. I just leave that on my windowsill, right up here, so that I don't forget about it. But yeah, feeding your starter doesn't have to be something where you're measuring and measuring and measuring. You can just kind of eyeball it and develop your own system, and things will turn out fine. At the end of the day, it is just flour and water fermenting with some bacteria from the air. So this will go on with or without you there. The first loaves of bread were made just from oatmeal sitting to the side and fermenting naturally over the course for a few days. And then they were like, hey, let's just bake this thing. Over the course of history, humans have gotten a lot more intense with it, and you'll see these beautiful breads coming from people that have holes that look like this. You see starters that are as bubbly as humanly possible. And yeah, this has changed a lot over the course of the years, and people have gotten a lot more scientific with it, but that is just not my personality. I just want to create a really good loaf of bread at home and manage my starter easily, and this is how I do it. I hope this helps you. If you're a non-numeric person like me, this is a great way to do it. So, I hope you're having a great day, I hope you're living an awesome life, and I hope to see you soon. Take care of yourself.